Hello everyone, welcome to my first YouTube video on my YouTube channel. On this channel you will see film reviews and history presentations and collaboration with my friends every now and then. Since October is coming up, I figured why not make a video on top 100 favorite horror films of all time. I'm going to split these into parts rather than making like a one video of top 100 favorite horror films because the video will be too long, so bring them into parts will make it easier that way. I hope you take this list and watch some of these films this upcoming Halloween in October. And don't take it personally about my rankings of these films. I love all these movies and I recommend all of them. This is just my own personal opinion of what my favorite horror films of all time are. The first horror movie on my list is Dawn of the Dead from 1978 by George Romero. What I like about this movie is that it's a sequel that doesn't really follow up. It's more like its own movie. You can watch this without not seeing Night of the Living Dead. I also love it how that, unlike the characters from the first film who did not like each other, get along, or agree on anything, these characters actually put their differences aside and work together as a team and a unit. Also, what's the number one place they go to for during a zombie apocalypse? The mall. Why not? This movie taught us that the malls are number one resource during a zombie apocalypse because it's got food, clothing, and just about anything you can think of. I also love how it shows how the zombies are mall consumers, as if they were like living their memories of their past lives, of what it was like before they were zombies, going to the mall. Number 99 on my favorite horror films is Mr. Sardonicus, directed by William Castle from 1961. A lot of you guys have probably never heard of this film. It's a film about a guy whose face is frozen, distorted, and a doctor's trying to help find a cure for him to help like cure his face. The film is not the greatest, but it's definitely like worth checking out because it has a lot of like fun cliches and some elements that weren't really explained as well for like motivations and stuff like that. And I love how William Castle like breaks the fourth wall talking to the audience and asking questions about how should we like, does Mr. Sardonicus deserve a happy ending or not? Not a classic or the greatest film, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's just a fun, cool movie to watch. Number 98 on my list is Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. The idea of waking up that your friend or loved one or family member could be an alien is a really horrifying concept that still holds up to this day. For 1956, that was a really scary concept. Number 97 on my list of favorite horror films, Them, a horror sci-fi from 1954 about big giant ants attacking a city. There were a lot of big giant monsters in the 50s, but this is like one of the best ones of them all. The effects are great, and the part when the little girl shouts, "Them! Them!" Because you really feel like sympathetic, as if like she saw something traumatic in her life, as if her family were killed by these giant insects and not seeing it. 96, Haxan. Again, another film you guys have probably never heard of. It's a film from the 1920s. It has a documentary, realistic type approach to it with great gothic atmosphere and a documentary on witchcraft. Also, for the 1920s, for that time, it's very satanic and had nudity in it, which was very unusual for that time in films. Also, the character Gwendolyn was an inspiration for the Joker. White Zombie from 1932 with Bela Lugosi. Considered the first zombie film, but it's not a flesh-eating zombie type film. It's more of a movie where they use voodoo and we can make more of a mind-controlling zombie film. Despite no music in it, Bela Lugosi's facial expression is horrifying, really scary. Number 93 on one of my favorite horror films is Scanners from 1981, directed by David Cronenberg. This film is very well known for its famous head explosion scene. If this movie came out today, that would be CGI, but back then, those effects were just amazing the way Cronenberg did it. But according to Cronenberg, he said that was like the most exhausting special effects he ever had to do on a movie. The movie's about a homeless man who is found by a scientist who finds out that he has the same telekinetic powers that he sends him out on a hunt to find more people just like him. But you have a group of renegade scanners who want to try to find and basically take over the world. Michael Ironside's performance is really just amazing. He's just like really, really bad. Like, he's a really bad person. The main character of the film, it's not that he's bad, he's just like really not that interesting of a character. And Jennifer O'Neill's character just like comes like halfway through the film as if she's supposed to be like some love interest. Number 92 of my favorite horror films is Eraserhead from 1977, directed by David Lynch. As you all know, he was the creator of the series Twin Peaks. It's a very weird, strange, bizarre, like nightmarish film that you want to just wake up from. The film shows about the horrors of parenthood. It has like one of the most disturbing, very horrifying baby scenes ever. One way to describe David Lynch as a film director, he is so like weird and bizarre that you have no idea like what kind of film that he'll make or what kind of film that he's like trying to point out in his point of view. Number 91 of my favorite horror movies of all time is The Hills Have Eyes from 1977, directed by Wes Craven. The film is about a middle-class family that go out on a trip in the middle of nowhere in the desert. Then you have these group of cannibals who are trying to eat and kill them for no apparent reason. It's your basic survival of the fittest film where, like, you have these group of killers for no reason that are trying to kill you for no apparent reason. It's a really horrifying film. Number 90 on my all-time favorite horror movie list is Rabid from 1977, directed by David Cronenberg. It's about a sexually transmitted disease that is sexually transmitted through an alien in the person. When you have sex with that person, the alien goes inside the other person's body. The film is like about how like the horrors of sexually transmitted diseases. Number 89 on my all-time favorite horror movie list is The Hunchback of Notre Dame from 1923 with Lon Chaney Sr. And no, this is not the Disney version. There are no singing gargoyles in it. This film is more faithful and true to the book of Victor Hugo about the crime and the corruption of the Catholic Church. Number 89 on my all-time favorite horror movie list is The Hunchback of Notre Dame from 1923. No, this is not the Disney version. No singing gargoyles are in it. The film is more faithful to Victor Hugo's novel about the corruption of the Catholic Church. Lon Chaney does a great job playing Quasimodo, and he's very dramatic. I also love his stunt scenes because back then, those were like amazing acrobats that are just so hard to achieve. Especially how like nowadays everything is all green screen, where back then it was so practical. It's actually really like jumping on those gargoyles, those buildings. It's really amazing. Number 88 on my all-time favorite horror movie list is Cat People from 1942. Back in the 1940s, producer Val Lawton produced horror movies for a cheap budget for RK Studios. Despite the title, there really is like no like cat transformation, or no cat is shown in the film. But despite not seeing the cat, it's still really horrifying. This was the first film back in those days of what you do not see is scary and horrifying. For example, when you see a woman walking down the street, it's dark atmosphere, and you're worried thinking is she going to be attacked by a cat. She walks slowly down the street, then all of a sudden a bus pulls up, and when that bus pulls up, she gets inside, and the cat doesn't appear. The fear of being attacked by the cat not happening is still a horrifying concept. Number 87 on my all-time favorite horror movie list is Invaders from Mars from 1953. It's a sci-fi horror film about a boy whose parents were abducted by aliens. Even though I love this movie, I'll admit some like parts of it are outdated, like the alien looks and the special effects are a little bit goofy, campy, and outdated. What I love about the film is you really feel sympathy for the boy whose parents were abducted by aliens. It also has a great twist of a boy's point of view. Number 86 on my all-time favorite horror movies is Godzilla 1954, the original Japanese cut. What I love about this film is that you get the sense of neorealism as if you were like watching a documentary on the post Hiroshima bombings from World War II. Also, not seeing Godzilla in the dark is really horrifying, especially when you don't know when he's going to attack buildings, destroy houses, or stamp on people. Number 85 of my top 100 favorite horror movies of all time is Eyes Without a Face from 1960. It is a French horror movie. It's about a medical doctor whose daughter was in a car accident and it ruined her face. So he keeps her locked up and isolated so that way nobody can see her. She also wears a mask so that way she can hide her face without seeing what she looks like. Her father goes around kidnapping women, trying to find a cure and trying to restore her face, but it keeps failing. And let me tell you, for 1960, it has one of the goriest scenes you'll ever see in a 60s movie for its time period. Number 84 of my top 100 favorite horror movies, When a Stranger Calls from 1979. It's about a babysitter who is babysitting children, and a stranger calls for no apparent reason and wants to kill the children. It's a very realistic type of horror that could happen to anybody in real life. Number 83 of my top 100 favorite horror films of all time is Suspiria from 1977, directed by Italian horror film director Dario Argento. Despite it looks like a very colorful film, it's a very horrifying nightmare that you just want to wake up from. Also, it shows what if Snow White was a horror film. Number 82 of my top 100 favorite horror film is The Faculty from 1998, directed by Robert Rodriguez. This film is like The Breakfast Club meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The teenagers are the hero of this film and they are very likable. The film stars Elijah Wood in one of his early teen films at the time before he was big with Lord of the Rings films at the time. Number 81 of my top 100 favorite horror movie of all time is The Last House on the Left, directed by Wes Craven in 1972. This was Wes Craven's first film he ever directed. The film is about two teenage girls who are in town for a rock concert. Then they are kidnapped and mugged by these thugs for no apparent reason. It's a type of film about a horror where it's more of a realistic type of horror, real life situation that could happen to anybody. They are tortured and forced things to do that they normally would not do. There was a lesbian scene that was cut because it was considered too graphic, and now that scene is considered lost and burned today, and there's no copy of that scene. It has a great revenge subplot in the end. Also, there's a little comedy to it by these two cops, which were okay, but I don't really think it wasn't really necessary to add comedy to this film. Number 80 on my top 100 favorite horror movie of all time is The Stepfather from 1987. The film is based off of serial killer John List. It's a psychological horror about a guy who is trying to find the perfect family. Every time he finds that there's a family that he gets bored, tired of them easily, he ends up killing them. Terry O'Quinn as Jerry Blake is really convincing and really horrifying. He does a great job playing a character who's got a multiple personality disorder as if he does not know who he is because he's killed a lot of families. He can't remember which one is which or who he is.